Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Laugh Riot podcast. My name's Matt.
And I'm Ben.
Ben, let's just jump straight into it.
Yeah, the first segment of the show is called Reading the Headlines, where we read some headlines from Reddit and talk about them. The first headline today is from World News. Germany ends all arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Anything to say on this, Matt?
I'm not surprised about it because there was the whole controversy of I want to say an American journalist who was killed by some like Saudi government officials or something, and so there was a huge scandal over that. So clearly, it's just a backlash from that, which is fair enough.
Moving on, I guess. Second headline from today is a lovely photo of President Obama. Headline: President Obama volunteered at a food bank today to help prepare for Thanksgiving.
Obama, my boy, what a lad. I don't think anyone can like look at that and sort of like turn up their nose at someone helping out people. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole point of like volunteering at a food bank. You're like trying to help people, which is dope. What I find interesting and what I do question is, did he like tell the media and stuff about it, and so then the media showed up, or did the media just like find him there? You know what I mean?
I wouldn't know, eh?
You know what I mean? Like, was it more of like a publicity thing, or were the intentions like more pure?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's like the one thing.
Someone's saying it used to be a US presidential tradition on Thanksgiving to volunteer. So there's photos of Obama and Bush, and I can't make out who else is in these photos, helping out as well. So
Oh,
I think
okay.
maybe it's just something they do. I assume Trump's never done it, which is certainly no surprise.
Yeah, yeah. No surprises there.
Just kind of shows
Yeah, but
the contrast, eh? I mean, he
yeah,
looks like he's
yeah,
having a good time. So the next headline is in a first, FBI to begin collecting national data on police use of force. That's quite an interesting one, because quite often you hear stories of police using unnecessary force, you know,
yeah,
and it's kind of good that it seems like something might be done about it now.
yeah. Because I know that was a big complaint. I remember reading articles about it, and they were like, "Well, we actually don't know like the exact numbers of all these incidences because there's no like we don't keep a record of them."
Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely a like a very common, like thing that keeps coming up in America, and that's sort of why the whole Black Lives Matter movement started. Basically, anything that will hopefully help with in regards to this issue is a good thing in my book. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a complicated issue because you have the side of the people who are victims of police brutality, and then you got the cops who are like, who some would argue are just trying to do their jobs. It's definitely a complicated issue that and a nuanced issue that is much more complicated than people realize, I think, as well.
hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Up next is a little segment that we like to call Top 5. So today we're going to do our top 5 tabletop games. This segment is semi-inspired, I will say, semi-inspired by a film called High Fidelity, where they make little top 5 lists of their own. I'm just going to preface this by saying I've defined tabletop games, alright, Ben?
Yeah.
I've defined tabletop games. Let me know if you think this is too out there of a definition. All right. To
Oh
be
wow.
in order to qualify, it's got to be played on the top of a table, and it has to be a game.
Damn. Yeah.
That's my
I would.
definition.
I'd probably agree. You know.
Yeah. All right. Just as
I
long
feel
as
like
we're in agreement.
you thought long and hard about that one, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. It was
Yeah.
we did some research. We had a team of about 10 people. There was lots of voting
Yeah.
happening. We managed to push through the definition.
While I agree with the definition, doesn't mean I'm not going to scoff at some of your choices. So
I'm sure you
go ahead.
will. I feel like you're gonna scoff at my number one, but that's okay. All right.
All right, all right.
Okay. So my number five pick is last card or Uno. So obviously, this is gonna show sort of where I sit on tabletop games. Most of mine are card games. Because that's sort of it was the games I was brought up on, Ben. It was the games I was brought up on. Um,
Mhm,
so yeah,
mhm.
so number five pick, last card slash Uno, because they're very very similar games. Last card was the game that we played like at high school, so it's sort of
Yeah,
high school intermediate era, I want to say. So that sort of leads to that, like being there as sort of like a slight nostalgia pick. You know what I mean?
yeah,
High school was not a good time, but it does take me back to like the better part of high school, right? Because the better part of high school was like, I don't know about you, but my favorite subject at school was lunch. So it takes me back to then.
On that note, Matt, I'd have to say lunchtime for me was my least favorite part of the day because it was so long and pointless. It was so needlessly long because I found I just
Yeah,
wanted to go home because you couldn't do anything
right.
at lunch. Like, like you play a card game. Okay, cool. That gets boring after a while for sure. Like,
Yeah,
yeah. So like, I just wanted to go home and just have a 20-minute break for lunch, get myself half an hour home earlier. It'd be so much better.
yeah. Yeah, so that's basically my number five pick was last card slash Uno.
Do you have a favorite out of the two options? Like, would you rather play the Uno with the proper cards and stuff?
I feel like we played. Feel like we played last card more than we played Uno. So it's probably last card. Um, I sort of chucked Uno there as well, just because of how similar the game is.
Yeah, my number five pick today is a game called Codenames, and that's a really fun game for 3 or 4 players. And you can have maybe 6 or 8. Actually, you could probably have as many as you want, really, but you don't want too many. It's basically where you have two teams, and you have these code names on the like a grid of these words. It could be just random words like weather and computer and science and all this kind of stuff. Um, and one person is the decoder person who gets this grid of basically telling you which of these names, which of these words are relevant to your team, and you need to get the rest of your team members to guess those words. So if two of your words, for example, were light bulb and banana, you might say yellow too, meaning that because light bulbs are kind of yellow, bananas are yellow. So like you say a word and two because there are two words that relate to it to try and get people to guess it. And it's a really fun game. It's kind of just like a more casual game that a lot of people wouldn't know about because it's one of like I mean yeah, every one of my games is what I would consider a real board game, and not like the typical ones, which I assume are on your list. I mean, last last week when we were discussing what topic we were gonna do, we were like, yeah, let's do board games. So Matt was just like, oh yeah, like I don't know, snakes and ladders, and I was just like cringing at myself because that's what I would consider not a real board game. I mean, technically it's a
It's
board
a
game, alright? It's
it's
board and it's a
what
game,
what
but
how
you
it's
know what it
not
is?
how is that not a board game? It's a
It is
board,
a
and
it's a
you
board
and it's a
game.
game.
Hold on.
It's
It's a
therefore a
board game
board
spelt
game.
BORED because it makes me so bored. Um,
Ha
it's not a real board.
ha!
Anything made, anything,
Hilarious.
any of those casual ones that like made by Hasbro and all those ones, they're just fake.
Those are board
Not fake,
games.
but like they're so simple and bland that they're just not worth it
Aren't those
most of the
like
time.
more
Most
likely?
of,
Like when I think of board games, I think of those games well before
but
I think of.
they're just not fun. They're just not fun.
I'm not.
Anyway,
No, no,
we'll
no, no,
talk
no.
more.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they're good. I'm not saying they're good.
Okay.
I'm just saying that's what I think
Okay.
of.
Right, sure. Sure, it's because you haven't experienced enough good board games. That's why. That's
All
why we're
right.
doing this top five, so we can
Yeah.
share these things.
To
Yeah.
educate
So
to
code
educate
names.
Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Code names. I highly recommend you all find it. It's on like Mighty Ape or whatever. Can't remember how much it costs. It's not too much, but it's a fun like game to like play at parties or whatever, I guess, or like Christmas, Christmas family gatherings, that kind of thing. It's a real good one. It's real easy to learn, and yeah, a lot of fun. And it's can be tough sometimes connecting those words together. Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah.
What's your next one?
Yeah. I've never played Codenames, but I've like watched people play it, and it sort of
Mm-hmm.
like raised my eyebrow at it. I was like, oh, that's a bit interesting. Yeah, so I'll be sure to check it out at some point. My number four pick is a brilliant game. Especially if you're playing with a bunch of mates and you're all twisted people inside.
I think I know which one this is.
Yeah, I think you already know. Cards Against Humanity. It's a good game. I like it a lot. Mainly because it's like, you're sort of just trying to make. At the end of the day, you're just trying to like make your mates laugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's interesting as well because from it, I think you sort of work out, especially if you're playing with mates that you like know quite well, you can sort of tailor your answers.
Yes.
Presuming the cards come that that will like fit that mate's sense of humor. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
you could like pick up a card and then you'll be like, oh, this one would be good for so, and then you'll save it, and then you'll wait for so and so to be the cards are, and then you'll just like you'll bang that on, and then you know that you're gonna get the point. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there's something about
There.
getting
Did
like
you
the
find?
feel the
Did you find? Did you find sometimes when you played that there are like certain cards that are just instant wins that like almost definitely you'll win with that card?
yeah.
We used to play it a bit in high school. It wasn't even the real game. Like a guy just like printed his own cards out on little pieces of paper, and it was really badly like organized. Like they went everywhere, and there's massive piles of paper, but it was still fun.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. What would be your favorite white card, Ben?
I know I've had some good ones, but I can't remember most of them. One of them to do
Yeah,
with
same.
orphans. Definitely anything to do with orphans is always good. Uh,
Yeah.
um, Six Panda is always one of the instant win cards, basically. When we were playing, it was a long time ago. All right, then moving on. My number four pick is another card game, similar to Cards Against Humanity, except it's not horrendous. Um, it's called Dominion, and it's a deck building game where you like I don't know how to describe it. You build. It's just like every card has a certain ability or something, and you want to. I think that the aim is just to earn gold or points or victory points or something like that, and you just play certain cards and you make certain combinations of cards and stuff. And it's just a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun. That's one of my absolute faves. Along with Codenames, this is another good game that's kind of a good entry level game into if you're trying to get yourself into board games. I mean, really, all of my ones on my list are kind of entry level. I don't go too complicated. I mean, I have, but like they're not like my favorite games. Yeah.
So my next pick is a game I'm sure Ben that you haven't heard of, and that is called May I. Um, so it's a card game usually played with two decks of cards, I believe, and it's an interesting card game because it's quite actually a long game because you sort of like each round you're trying to get like different combinations of like things. So there's like two kind of things you can get. One is like a run, which is four cards of the same suit in like consecutive order. So like four, five, six, seven of like clubs or something. And then the other thing is called a set, which is three cards of like the same thing. So like three fives. And so like each round you're trying to get certain hands. Yeah, so then you try and like collect those hands by like picking cards up, and then you can also like once you dump a card, so you have to like pick a card up and then discard a card, right? Each time you go. And so when you put a card down, the person to the immediate left, I think, or might be right, I can't remember. It's been a while since I played, can then pick it up. and then play accordingly. However, if someone later on in the like whoever's playing can then say may I? So basically they can if they want that card, they can say may I, and then they can take that card, but the person who's to the immediate like right of whoever like threw the card out has to give them permission, hence the term may I.
Right.
So it's a pretty complicated game. Then you sort of win by making the hand, putting the all the cards down, and then dumping your cards out. Um, and then once the first person's out, whoever's left, you then count up your cards, and then certain cards are worth certain amount of points, and then it's kind of like golf at the end of all the rounds, whoever has the least amount of points wins. So a
Hmm.
pretty complicated game.
To be honest, it doesn't sound that complicated.
Yeah, yeah. So the reason why it hits my list though is because of the fact that it was sort of the major card game that was played in my family. So
Right. Oh
me,
yeah.
me, my mother, my two sisters, my grandmother. Yeah, so it sort of reminds me of those moments. You know what I mean? Of like family and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
so again, a little bit of nostalgia creeping in there. Yeah. So may I, my number three pick.
Yeah. Well, here comes my third pick. Which is a game called Seven Wonders. It's a it's it's a well, I call it a board game, but it's mostly used. You mostly use cards to like build up your city and gain points and all this kind of thing. So it's like yeah, card drafting. So like you have like seven cards in your hand. You pick one, then you move on. You pass it to the around, and you get the next pile of cards and that sort of thing. That's how it works. Yeah, just a really fun game. Just a nice fun board game. Number two. What's your number two?
Number two, yeah, my number two is poker. Love me some poker. Texas Hold'em in particular. Poker has a lot of things going for it. All right, so it's got the mathematical side, right? Like you know that if you study the game, you know that certain hands have better equity against other hands. But then you also have sort of the psychological side of it, of trying to read people, work out if they're bluffing or not, which I love. I love both those sides of the game. Um, and poker also, I think, should hold a special place in both myself and Ben's heart, in the fact that Ben and I actually became friends through poker. So so I think that therefore it deserves a list because without poker, this podcast would not have happened.
Excellent point. I don't
Yeah,
think I thought about
yeah,
that. I don't
yeah.
remember when we kind of first became friends. Maybe it was through the poker. I don't remember.
I feel like it was through poker, bro. I legitimately
Yeah.
pretty sure it was through poker. But yeah, we Ben and I used to play poker at the beginning of the year. Yeah, and I've really enjoyed learning the game and getting better at it
Yeah.
because most of the time
Along with Tash,
I
of
end up
course.
winning. Yeah, along with
Don't
Tash,
forget.
the original poker crew.
Well, my number two pick is Seven Wonders Duel or Duel. So it's kind of a two-player version of Seven Wonders that is kind of a different variant, a different way of playing the game, which I find a lot. I actually think it's a lot more fun. I think it's a better game than the original version. Um, yeah, it's I don't know what else to say. It's just a two-player variant of the game I just talked about. So it's kind of probably you probably want the original first because you get to know the game. But then again, if you don't have anyone else to play it with, if you only have one other person to play it with, just buy Seven Wonders Duel. I mean, I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out. It's just it's a good time. Hit me with your honorable mentions, Matt.
Yeah, on to our honourable mentions. My first honourable mention is Scum. Scum's a good card game. Again, sort of the typical.
I have to ask.
Yeah,
Did we play Scum earlier in the year? I think we did once or
yeah,
twice, eh?
yeah, we did.
I don't remember if we had this
Um,
conversation because Scum is also on my honorable mentions list. But like,
yeah,
I'm so particular. I'm so particular about the rules of Scum because so many people play different stupid
yeah,
rules. Like, some people say, like, for example, Joker can't beat an 8 go low or a 10 go low, whatever you play, which is ridiculous. Joker can beat anything, like literally anything. That's the point of the Joker. And some people
Mm.
play, like, if you, for example, if there are 4 aces, you could beat it with 3 twos. Like, you could. Some people play that a 2 like only needs 1 less card, which doesn't make any sense because then you could just say, I've got 0 twos and I can beat your 1 ace. you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, that, I mean, obviously they wouldn't
Always.
allow that, but it's still dumb. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I feel like a good rule of thumb when it comes to like whether it be a card game or board game or a drinking game or whatever is always confirm house rules before you start. Just
Yeah,
be like, yo,
absolutely.
what's house rules? And I reckon how house rules work is either A, whoever's house you're playing in,
Yeah,
makes the rules,
or whoever,
and B,
or whoever's
hence
cards
hence
they
the
are.
term, yeah, or whoever cards they are is usually
Yeah.
the the rule of thumb of how you play.
What if, hold on, I've got a question. What
Mm,
if you go to someone else's house and bring your own cards? Whose
yeah.
rules are they?
So then what happens is you have to play a game of paper scissors rock, and that decides who makes the rules. If you
Okay,
two are
okay, fair
arguing,
enough.
that is. But if
Right.
if between the card owner and the house owner can like come to a decision, then all good. But if you can't, if there's a clash of arguments and egos, then paper scissors rock it out, and that's how it can be
Yeah.
decided. My next honorable mention is Secret Hitler, which
Oh, damn.
I literally learnt this game last night.
Oh,
Played it for the
really?
first time, yeah. So
Yeah.
finally played it. Pretty good game. I enjoy it. Yeah. Another game similar to Secret Hitler in the Resistance. Another game that I enjoyed. A
Oh
game
my
that I only learnt
goodness.
this
I
year.
don't.
I
I
like
completely
these
forgot about the
these types
resistance.
of yeah. I like these types of games.
Yeah, I'll add that
Um,
to my to my honorable mentions real quick.
yeah. And then
I've heard great things about Secret Hitler, but I've never had the chance to play it yet.
yeah, it's good. It's good. Next up is a children's classic. It's because I have to chuck one like classic in, right? Because like
I
otherwise,
know.
what are you
I
doing?
know. What
Um,
is it? What is it?
Cranium. It's like
Oh
all
yeah.
the games mixed into one. You know, like you got a
Hmm.
bit of
You know what?
Pictionary in
I'll
there.
allow that.
You got a
I'll
bit of
allow that. That's
charades in there. You know, it's just a good mix of all the classics. So
yeah.
Cranium, and then followed by I don't know. You can chuck in like categories in there, or like Guess Who, or like okay, I have a question, right, for my
Hmm.
last pick. All right, Crush Gears. Question number one: do you know what Crush Gears is? So I remember playing it at like primary school and stuff, right? What we'd do is you'd like make these little like origami like little like cart like go kart like spaceship looking things, right? And then you'd like flick it, and the game was you'd flick it into your opponent's thing that would be sitting on a table, right? And then you'd try and knock them off, and that's how you won. Is that a tabletop
Okay.
game? Yes or no?
It sounds like you're using a table,
Yeah,
so
I think
I'm
it
gonna
fits
say
my
yes.
definition. All right,
Yeah.
Crush Gears is my last pick. It's on there because we used to play it. We used to play it at like primary school and stuff. So again, the like nostalgia factor. Um, yeah, no, I remember it being really fun. Yeah, and a good time. So that's my last honorable mention. On to you,
Cool.
Ben.
Right. Well, I'm sort of embarrassed because, well, I mean, literally wrote this list this morning, like 2 minutes before we started the podcast because
Same.
I forgot to do it, and I literally forgot one of my favorite games, which I've only played twice, but it was so much fun. It's a card game called Unstable Unicorns, and honestly, I think it should be my number five, but I only remembered it halfway through the podcast. Yeah, and it's oh, how do I describe it? It's just like the aim of the game is just to get a certain amount of unicorns, um, and like there are cards that just do certain things, and it can just go for so long. The game just goes for ages, but it's just a card game about unicorns. And it's so much fun. I don't know how else to describe it except you just gotta play it and get the expansions. There's like a dragon expansion as well. That's like really good. Get that. Next on my list is a
Alright.
game called Caverna. This is probably one of the most complicated games on my list, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a Euro game where you're like dwarves that are like cave farmers. So you live in a cave and you farm. So like half of your board is the farm and half of your board is the cave. And you can explore the cave and build out your farm, and you get resources and do expeditions and that sort of thing to get uh, gold, right? And then gold is most gold wins, I guess. Lots of fun. That game takes a long time though. It can take like 4 to 6 hours. Not actually the longest game on my list though. I'll keep going. Another one, Ticket to Ride. That's always a good time. I've got the Europe edition back at home. It's fun. I did put Monopoly on my list, and not because I think it's a great game, but because for some reason I enjoy it, and I think the reason I enjoy it is the statistical side of it. Because you know how you were saying with
Yeah,
poker, like a lot of the
yeah,
fun is in the statistical side. I find that with Monopoly, most people think, oh, it's all complete random chance. It's actually not. There is a statistical analysis, that you can think about it. There's a great video by Stand Up Maths on YouTube. Yes, it's great. It's a great. He does some cool videos, and it's a great little analysis of what's the best places to go in Monopoly. And I also have to talk about house rules because a lot of the reason people hate Monopoly is because they say, "Oh, it's so boring and it takes so long." And 99% of the time, the reason it takes so long is because they're adding in their own house rules, which adds more cash into the game, and the game only ends once people run out of cash. So like game things like free parking, adding in like money, you get money when you get free parking is ridiculous because you're just adding more money back into the game. That just makes the whole game take longer. There's a lot of those kind of rules like double double salary when you land on go, that kind of thing. Like they're kind of like fun things that you think would make the game more fun, but they meant to make it way more drawn out and long. Um, so that's another thing I have to say on that game. Yeah, I don't know why. I just kind of enjoy playing it, even though I don't think it's a great, fantastic game. But moving on, Risk. Um, both variants of Risk. I've played the one where you have missions and the one where you just try to conquer the world. Those are fun, but I've only played them a couple times. Um, Another game called Apples to Apples, which is kind of like Cards Against Humanity, but for kids. This is a game we used to play in school, like when I was in like year 5 or 6. And at the time, anyway, I haven't played it recently, but at the time it was really fun. Um, and Exploding Kittens, I wanted to mention. It's another game that I don't think's amazing, but it's just it's kind of fun because the creativity of the game and the art style and that sort of thing. I had to mention it. And here come my really complicated games. There's one called Twilight Imperium. This game, a bunch of us played it. It took us 2 hours to learn how to play the game, and 6 hours to play the game. It took so long. But that was quite fun. I think I've played that 2 times now. But there's another game that's kind of similar that I actually think's better. It's called Forbidden Stars, and it's based on the Warhammer universe. Um, and so they're both kind of similar in that there are these planets, this board of like planets, and it's kind of like Risk but with space in space. So you want to like conquer certain planets or whatever and get missions to win. And then there's literally one Hasbro game, okay, apart from Monopoly, on my list, that I legitimately do think is a great game, and that's Connect Four. That's a classic that I just don't think like you can't argue that it's not a fun game. Actually, I enjoy it, or at least that is not a good game. I think it's quite a good, nice, simple game, and that's all you need. I
yeah.
used to play this with one of my teachers in year 4, and I almost always beat him. It was quite fun. Um, Moving on, Texas Hold'em, of course, Scum. We talked about the Resistance. I can't believe I missed out the Resistance. It is such a fun game. And similarly, another social deduction game, which I don't know if you can call it a tabletop game. You can play it on a table, but I usually don't. I usually play it like you sit on a couch or whatever. It's called One Night Ultimate Werewolf, which is kind of like a Mafia, I guess, but like the proper version with like actual proper cards and that kind of thing as well. And there's much more roles than you're playing normal Mafia. So that's a lot of fun. There's a one night variant which I actually prefer to the multi night variant. And then the last one is a game that I've played once. It's called Captain Sonar, which is kind of where there's like four of you on a team. A team. There's two teams of four basically, and you like in this what you call it, a submarine, right? And every person in the team has a different role, and you got to like say, do we have permission to do this? And then the guy's like, working that out, blah blah blah, and then like you have to look at things based on a map, and you see if you can do a certain thing, or if your engine is needs repairs or something like. And every person has a different role, and you got to like talk to each other. And at the same time, there's like one person who's listening to the other team to try and figure out where they are, where they're going on the map, and then you go like ready to fire missiles, and then fire missiles, ready, that kind of thing, or torpedoes. It's a really fun game. It's so hectic, so hectic, and that is my long list of honorable mentions.
All right, without further ado, my number one pick is Mafia. All
Oh
right,
really?
I like
All
Mafia.
right,
All right,
all
sue me.
right.
All right, so I like Mafia because it's similar to like why I chucked, Secret Hitler and the Resistance, right, into my honorable mentions, is because I feel like Mafia is a better game. I know, big call, but
Oof,
what I like about
very
Mafia,
big call.
is, or if you want to call it werewolves, I don't care. I prefer Mafia. Anyway, um, is because you've got the whole thing of, again, those who are Mafia are lying, those who are not are trying to find out who's lying, right? So you have that, psychological side of the game that I really like. Why I like Mafia is because there's more of a talking element to it than other
Mm-hmm.
games. It's more about
Really?
like
Compared to
using
Resistance
logic,
and Werewolf,
using yeah. At least in my well,
in
Werewolves is
your
the exact same
experience.
game.
Can I ask about Mafia? How many different roles do you play in Mafia?
Well, that's the thing, because you can play with like as many roles as you want, because there's like multiple
Yeah,
different
because I've only
variants.
ever played Mafia with like just the basic, like the Mafia,
Yeah,
the citizen, the doctor, and the investigator or whatever.
yeah,
It's just so boring because like 90% of the people there are just citizens that can't do anything. So I love Werewolf.
yeah,
Like there's so many variations and so many different characters you can be. And like one of
yeah.
my favorites is the Tanner, who is depressed and hates his life and he wants to die, and when he dies, he wins. That's one.
Yeah. So again, Mafia has that exact same thing, except it's
Right,
called, I think it's the Jester or
right.
something. Exact same thing.
Okay,
And they win only if they get lynched. So like anything with werewolves, right? With all those extra rules, you can find equivalents on Mafia. It's just whether
okay.
you have enough people to sort of play
Yeah,
to play
maybe it's
those
just
other
because
roles.
whenever I've played Mafia, I've played with people who just don't know about the other ones. Most people
Yeah.
just treat it so casually, which I hate. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one role, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like if that person gets killed off, they can choose someone to kill them as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I know there's
Yeah,
one of
so
those
there's
in
like one of those.
Werewolf as well.
Like that's the thing with like Mafia versus werewolves. It's literally the only difference is the name. That's the only like
Right.
like the name of the thing and the roles is really the only difference.
Is there a one night? Is there a one night variation of Mafia?
I don't know of a one night
Yeah,
version.
because I really
Yeah,
enjoy the one night version because it's like I feel like it's more discussion
quicker.
and it's more logic based
Oh
as
yeah,
well, which I enjoy.
right.
Because there's like cards in the
Yeah,
middle and like people's cards get swapped around and stuff,
yeah.
and you like
Yeah,
you might not even be the role that you thought you were. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
Um.
I like with Mafia, or at least the non one night version, is playing that long game, especially as Mafia. Because
Right.
like
Okay.
the
Yeah.
reason the history behind Mafia was that it was like made up by like a psychology professor, and he was working out like the stress of lying and what that
Hmm.
has like on the body.
Okay.
Like it's actually like that's what all the science sort of says, is that um lying for long periods of time is very stressful. Um, and so it's
Yeah.
interesting being in that position as Mafia and being like, oh shit, like the entire time, and sort of trying to work out these like plays and how you can twist the truth into your favor. Yeah, and I really like that element, and I feel like you would get.
Yeah.
To be fair, I haven't played the one night version, but
Yeah.
um I feel like with with playing it over multiple nights, you sort of have that development both for the mafia side but also for the town side, in that
Yeah.
you are like, I don't know, I just prefer the long game.
That's why I find it strange that you say you enjoy Mafia more than the Resistance, because I feel like the Resistance is like much more like that, like long game. Like sometimes, like you won't like if you're the spy, you'll still try and pass some missions to because if you like if you fail the first missions, it was like really obvious like who it was or whatever, like
Yeah,
I feel like that's much more like long game and more. I always have so much like arguing and talking in that, and it's another one where you can like try and twist the truth around and find holes in what people are saying, that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah,
It's like another fun game where like even if you're not the spies, you still like make up stuff to try and throw people around. It's quite fun.
yeah,
I do that. I mean,
yeah.
I do that all the time in Werewolf. Right, my number one pick then. It's my favorite board game of all time, and all the board game enthusiasts might scoff at me because it's like literally the entry level game. Like it's the only like board game, and I'm using quotation marks here to try and define board game as a proper board game, not a Hasbro piece of crap. Um, it's like the most simplest board. It's like the monopoly of. A lot of people call it the monopoly of board games because it's like the simple entry level one that everyone actually already knows about. Anyway, and that's Settlers of Catan. The reason I love it is because, well, I've played it for many years with my friends and family, and it is fun. Like, a lot of people say, like, oh, it's kind of bland and boring, and there are better games out there now, which I'm sure there are. But it's like, it's an easy one to learn, and it's an easy one to play, and it's, I don't know, like, it's just really fun. I just really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. Especially with the Cities and Nights expansion, that adds a lot to the game as well, which I think makes it much better. It's just fun. I've always enjoyed it. The most fun I've ever played playing a board game has been playing Catan, probably. Maybe it's because I've played it more than most of the other games I've played. I don't know. I just think
Right.
there's something about it that I think will always be great.
Yeah.
Have you played it, Matt?
No, I haven't. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the games that you've mentioned, I've sort of heard about, but never actually got the chance to play.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd be open to playing it for sure.
True. Yeah. All right then. The next segment, which well today we wanted to discuss the topic of brand loyalty, which is something that I've been thinking about a bit, and just recently, like I think it was just yesterday, I was reading a post on the Apple subreddit, where people are talking about the price of Apple devices recently, and Apple's one of these companies where you hear a lot about brand loyalty and people kind of
Yeah,
quote unquote
yeah,
Apple sheep and things like that, right? And I'm
yeah.
one of them. I'm fairly loyal. I use almost all, if not all, Apple devices. And I love the ecosystem. I love the interconnectivity between devices that you just don't get on any other platform. I mean, you just don't, and that's what I love. But recently, I have been fairly appalled at the prices of their phones. I mean, I just don't understand where it comes from. I really don't. There was an article published yesterday. Someone was saying that it's just greed, and it's honestly just greed. Because like
Mm.
if you, when I bought my iPhone, which was an iPhone 7, I bought it brand new. I bought that for it was like just under $1,400, which because I got the
Ooh.
bigger sized one. Because the regular size one was like 1,000. This is New Zealand dollars, of course, and then the bigger size one, which you kind of have to get because they basically force you to by making the lowest size one a terrible, inadequate size. So anyway, I got that. Yeah, just under $1,400, right? And that was like the top of the line one that you could get. And now they've just released the 10s and the 10R, and the 10R is meant to be their more budget friendly option. You know, the one that more people can afford. And it starts at
Yeah.
$1,400. And I'm just like,
Ooh.
what the heck? Like, I don't know how they can justify this. What is the 10s? The 10s starting price. The cheapest 10s you can get is $1,900. I mean, that just doesn't make
Mm.
any sense. It's just ridiculous. Oh, I can't get over that ridiculous pricing. It just doesn't make any sense, and I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, it shouldn't have gone up that much in the last how many years? That was only 2 years ago that I bought my phone, right? And the price has gone up by what did I just say? It was $1,900. So it's gone up by $500. even though the phone, like, sure, it has better features and there's some more expensive elements like the OLED display, right, and the Face ID, which again is unparalleled. No one else has Face ID like the iPhone does, but that's not what I'm arguing about. I'm just like, ugh, it shouldn't have gone up that much. It just shouldn't have.
Mm.
It's ridiculous and unnecessary. Some people are theorizing for some reason that like they think they have declining iPhone sales, so they're trying to bring the price up just so they can make more money back or make more, try and get back to that profit margin or something. I don't know how true that is about the iPhone sales because they're still like the top selling iPhone. I mean, this top selling phone. Like first quarter of this year, I think the iPhone 8 was like one of the top selling, if not the top selling phones, at least in the US, if not worldwide. Yeah, it seems crazy to me. I just don't get it. Like, yeah, and you can see the numbers do tell in terms of the brand loyalty, in terms of people who do buy these Apple devices. Like, I feel like definitely less people have bought 10s and 10R since their launch. I think this is the year that a lot of people finally realize that it's just unreasonable. The similar can be said for their Macs as well. Their MacBooks are a little pricey as well. Their iMacs, I think, are more fairly priced. You do get quite a decent deal, not a deal, like a decent package, you know, when you get an iMac. But the laptops, I think, are slightly more overpriced. This is not just about prices, but about loyalty in general to brands. Are there any? Do you have anything to say on the Apple brand, Matt?
Here's what I find, right? So I've had mostly iPhones, right?
Okay.
Why I gravitate towards Apple, at least for now, is because I find I find the user interface really easy to use, right? Like I just find it easy to use, right?
Yeah,
Which is like
absolutely.
the number one reason why to like buy something is, do you find it easy to use? Do the price, etc.,
Yeah,
etc. What I don't like about Apple is the battery life of iPhones. I've noticed is pretty bad, especially after having a phone for so long. Like also impacts it.
yeah.
Um, you
I
know what
do
I
have to
mean?
talk about that because a lot of people in the media and stuff will say, "Oh yeah, iPhone is made to kill itself in 2 years or whatever." None of that's true. At all. There was a big story last year about, or maybe it was even early this year. I can't remember. About how
Mm,
when the battery wears down, which literally happens to every battery, every lithium
mm,
ion battery, which is in every phone, it wears down because battery technology sucks, and for some reason there's not enough research going into finding battery technology. Honestly, it should be our number one focus. Not only does it doesn't last as long, but the battery is literally incapable as providing as much power, as much wattage as it previously could, and that's why sometimes you'll get apps that crash and sometimes things like that. So instead, what Apple implements is a system where it down clocks the processor and makes it run slower, so that you
yeah.
don't have things like fatal crashes, right? Which everyone complains about. Oh, Apple's slowing down your phone, blah 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 blah. But in the long run, it is to help you have a more longevity and have your phone actually last longer and not just totally brick itself at random points in
Mm,
time. The other thing on the life of iPhones compared to Androids and things, they are way more supported. They're way more heavily supported in terms of like software updates. Especially and more recently, I mean, I know in the past some of their software updates has made old phones really slow, but more recently, especially with like iOS 12, they've really helped older devices. So the iPhone 5S is the oldest phone that is still supported by the latest software updates, and that phone came out in 2013. There's no comparison to the Android market. Only the latest Android phones can get the latest software. Like you have to have one for the last 2, maybe 3 years to have the latest software, which is absolutely appalling. Yeah, there's no Android phone from 2013 or 14, probably even 15, that can support the latest Android software. And another thing about Androids is obviously how it takes so much longer to get these updates because every developer, every hardware manufacturer has to make their own variant of the software and it takes forever. And that's why you have very slow adoption. Whereas everyone gets iOS updates in a day. Well, they can, you know. It's a very fast
right.
adoption because you can actually get a battery replacement. And recently they were doing cheap replacements if you had a 7 or a 6S, I think. And if you're because they added a feature where you can see what your battery health is. I mean, I think it's kind of rigged because my battery health on my phone for the last like 6 or 7 months has said it's 80%, like exactly 80%. I don't believe that. I think it's definitely been decreasing. And the thing is, like, you can't get a cheap replacement from Apple unless, or a certified retailer, unless it's under 80%. So I reckon they try and keep it on 80% for some reason for as long as they can,
Yeah.
which I think is a bit unfair. But of course, that's Apple for you. They try and squeeze as much money out of you as they can.
So what I've heard, right, and this makes sense to me from a business perspective, is that Apple would purposely get their software to slow down certain phones, so
Mm-hmm.
then you go out and you buy more phones, right? That makes sense from
Sure,
a business perspective,
sure.
which is like, which did not, because the thing, like, that was like a huge conspiracy, right, for ages, as Apple was slowing down their phones, right? It
Yeah,
was like a
yeah.
huge conspiracy for ages. And then what I heard was then they basically confirmed it, but I wasn't like fully outraged. I was just like, yeah, well, I was basically like, no shit. Of course you're gonna do that
But it's
because
no, but
it
like
makes sense from a business perspective.
no, but it's that's not the reason that they're slowed down.
Why would
They
they
explain that
help
very
you
clearly,
though?
and it's very clear. They actually, it's the opposite. They help support their old phones even more now than they ever have
But why would you do that from a business perspective?
because they're
That
not
doesn't make
that
sense from a
terrible people.
business
I don't know. You know why? Because maybe why? Because you know how we're talking about the increase in price. Maybe they, instead of just expecting everyone to get the new phones, maybe they're expecting some people to buy older phones because they do sell brand new iPhone 7 still. I think that's what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to make their top end phones like super premium, and then if you want a more budget iPhone, you can buy an iPhone 7. But I mean, it is something that a lot of people I think do, is they buy a phone that's 2 or 3 years old because it's cheaper and it's still so well supported. Again, something you'll never find on the Android market.
I would
Yeah,
make the
yeah,
argument that most things, regardless of brand, right, are built to last for about 5 or less years, right? It's interesting because
you
you
talk
look
about you're
at,
talking about electronics.
yeah, just electronics in general and just everything in general, right? Most things
Yeah,
nowadays are built to last for shorter periods of time than they used to. Like obviously, again, from a business perspective, right? It makes more sense as a company to build your things to last only like shorter periods of time, right? Because it's more money, right? Because your thing breaks after a certain amount of time, and you're like, oh well, better buy a new one. You go back to that company, and then you and then you hand your money over. But it's interesting because things used to last for much longer periods of time, and now they don't. And obviously, yeah. So it just makes sense to build your things to last shorter periods of time because it equals more profit. And at the end of the day, whichever company you go to, whether it be Apple or Samsung or any Android thing or whatever, the company's number one priority is to make profit.
yeah, yeah,
That's
sure.
that's that's a company's number one priority is to make profit. They don't really care about the individual customer. They care about profit.
Yeah, I would say that's true in a lot of companies' cases. I think Apple
Mm.
definitely cares about the customer, but again, it's for the end goal of making profit. You're right
Exactly.
because they have such a
Exactly.
positive vibe, it makes a profit. So yeah, it is definitely their number one priority. If you're gonna go Android, I can say, don't go Google. Don't get a Google whatever they call it Pixel. The best Androids I've heard about would be the OnePlus series, which is a much cheaper option, I think. And also, I heard really good things about the second model of the Razer phone, which came out recently. So yeah, one of those would be, if you're gonna go Android, have a look into those ones. Yeah, I
Will
personally wouldn't
do.
recommend trying to go for like the big brands like Samsung, or like Google, because like I feel like they're very overpriced a lot because they're not, like, the OnePlus is like made for the market that knows what they want and just wants something decent for a good price, and that's what they provide. Whereas Samsung and Google are all mostly Samsung. You'll see it in their ads, almost like exact copies of iPhone ads, basically. Or actually, what was it, Oppo phone or something? There was an ad that was literally like styled straight after, like immediately, like you could tell it was just like they looked at an Apple ad and they're like, let's make this, So a lot of
Yeah.
phones these days, like the Oppos and the Samsungs, are trying to style themselves after Apple and make these ads and things that try and steal iPhone users, I guess. And one of the most cringy
Right.
things is Samsung a couple months ago maybe did a series of ads of I don't even know how it's even legal to do this kind of ad, but they were inside an Apple store, and a guy was asking the stupidest questions about an iPhone versus a Samsung or something. It's like, oh, but the Samsung Galaxy can have a gigabit Wi-Fi or LTE or whatever, and all these like the stupidest things that you could ever ask, and like stuff that's so unnecessary to compare. And then like there was like one of them was just like the guy in the Apple store was like, yeah, with iPhone you can uh, have group FaceTime and up to 32 people can call you. And then the guy in the ad's just like, but why would I ever need that? And it's just like, that's not the point. That's not the point. And it's just like the stupid ads that try and poke holes in things that Apple do. But then you look at Samsung and some of the stuff they do, you just ask, why would I even need that? Because there's so many things that they do and that Google does as well that
Mm.
aren't worthwhile things, and a lot of people say things that Apple does is gimmicky. Like people said that 3D Touch was gimmicky, and while I think that 3D Touch hasn't been developed well enough, it's a really fantastic technology in comparison to like Samsung's little thing where you can like touch the side of the phone to get different options, which that feels a bit like strange. And their S Pen on the Note is a bit, I don't know, quite gimmicky as well, and kind of tries to copy what Apple does as well. You can see it in their ads, like it tries to copy their Apple's version of digital touch, which is where you just type. It actually originally was on the Apple Watch. We can just like draw things and like send it to people, and they've done that with a pen, which seems unnecessary because on a phone, unless it's quite big, you're not really gonna need the pen. Honestly,
Right.
it's ridiculous because like they don't make any valid points. They're literally just taking advantage of the ignorance of consumers, and trying to poke holes and make fun and that kind of thing. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And that's why I'd recommend, even if you're not a fan of Apple and you just want to learn more about these kind of things that I'm talking about that you might not have heard about, subscribe to Talos of Tech on YouTube, who I mentioned him in the YouTube top 5 YouTubers that we did, because most of the things I'm saying I've like heard these things from him as well, right? Because he's quite a good defender. He brings up really valid points, but he's also when Apple screws up, he talks about that as well. So that's why I like him a lot. Do we have anything more to say on Apple? Because I was wondering if there are other brands. Because I don't know. I feel like no other brand has the loyalty that Apple does. I can't think of any.
Yeah. I feel like I'm not really loyal to any brand. I sort of just find whatever I can,
Hmm.
usually for the cheapest
Yeah.
price.
There's like fast food chains, I guess. Like some people just like won't go to Like I just don't like KFC at all, really. So I basically never go there.
I'm in the same boat as you. I don't like KFC. To be fair, I have a pretty decent reason not to like KFC.
Did you get sick once or something?
Yeah, well, my sister got like food poisoning from KFC, so
Really? Jeez, that's no good. Yeah, I'm always so nervous when I get KFC.
yeah, so that's kind of like turned me off from KFC, eh? Um,
But then again, I wouldn't say I'm super loyal. I wouldn't say I'm super loyal to any other fast foods. Like, I don't know. There's like Subway, which I don't know, but I don't like. It's because this Subway's the only place that does that kind of food. I don't know. So
yeah,
maybe that's
I'm pretty loyal to a very specific Thai restaurant down in Marangi
okay.
Bay. But that's because they make the dude, they make such good peanut sauce. Like it's amazing. They have like chicken satays, right? And they have like this peanut sauce thing. And the sauce is so good. It's so like I've gone to other like Thai restaurants and stuff, right? But the sauce like is nowhere near as good. I don't know. I think the thing with brand loyalty is you shouldn't be scared of shopping around. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's a good
Whatever
point.
it is you're buying, if you can find a thing for cheaper and for bit or like for cheaper and that delivers the same sort of thing that you're looking for, then you should go for the cheaper option because you should save your money.
Sure. Yeah. What about like? I mean, there's like airlines. Like a lot of people hate Jetstar, so I'm a lot more. I would say I'm a lot more loyal to AN not ANZ, Air New Zealand. Um,
Yeah.
but Occasionally, if their flights are too expensive for me, I'll have to go for Jetstar. But I heard so many terrible things. Like I heard there was someone posted on Reddit just yesterday. Literally that day I bought some plane tickets for Jetstar, and then I saw this post talking about how Jetstar like had this flight in Queenstown that they just totally cancelled and didn't help the customers at all to find other arrangements. Just left them in
Oh
the dust.
wow.
But apparently it wasn't like a one-off thing. Apparently because Jetstar schedules themselves so tightly, they like design it that way so that they allow for those things to happen, but they don't think about the customer at all. They literally only think about squeezing the most money out of what they can do. When you fly in New Zealand, you feel like you're being treated well as a customer. The only thing I hate about in New Zealand is their flipping safety ads.
Bro, I love the safety ads. The safety ads are lit.
Yeah,
It's the
but
best
the
part. Maybe
no,
maybe it's because someone who's like flown like all the time, I sort of like already know all the like safety stuff. So I find like normal safety ads
exactly.
boring.
So
I know.
right, so I don't know. There was one reasonable one. I think when I flew to Fiji in 2015, there was one that was reasonable because it was more focused on safety and it was less themed. Like the real themed ones, like the most recent one I saw was the Antarctica one. But like the whole thing's just giving you facts about Antarctica, and it was just like, why is this relevant at all? And when it's mixed in between these safety things, and when people they make jokes about certain aspects of the safety thing, like their videos are made as if they expect that you already understand all the safety things, and they're just trying to entertain you, right? Which is
Yeah.
not what a safety video should do, because there are first time flyers on every flight.
Yeah.
It's really dumb, and I hate it. And no one, if a plane has an emergency and they're falling from the sky or they crash, no one's gonna know what to do. No one's gonna know because the safety videos are garbage.
To be fair, though, during the safety vids, you can always just look at the flight attendants and they're like pointing to the exits and stuff, so you sort of do get the gist of it.
Do they?
And
Do
then
they
there's
even
also
point to that? I
then
find they
there's
don't
also the
even. They
book
literally
face.
they point forward and they point backwards. They don't, and they go like this weird little motion with their hands, and it's really not
Yeah.
very helpful where they're pointing to. Honestly, I guess like they show you how to pull on a life jacket. I guess that's useful. But even then, most of the time you can't see them because it's spaced too far apart from each other, and you got someone tall and you
Right.
can't see over them or whatever. The little booklet, that's the most helpful
Yeah.
thing because it shows you like your
Yeah.
brace position and stuff. You know.
If you're a first time flyer, then you'll just read that and you'll sort of get the gist of it.
Yeah,
If
but I
you've
mean,
missed
you
stuff in
shouldn't
the
have to.
video.
There's a dedicated video that's meant to explain that. It just doesn't. It's ridiculous. There we go.
Alright.
Okay, in New Zealand rant over. I'd still rather fly with them than Jetstar though. I wish there was another national. Why are they the only two airlines that do domestic flights? Honestly, I wish Singapore
I don't know.
Airlines did domestic flights in New Zealand because they are like the best airline that I've been on. I would
Yeah.
much rather go with them than like even like Emirates or something is like usually cheaper. It does a much longer run. It takes ages and goes through so many stopovers, and their service is not nearly as good. So like Singapore Airlines all the way. All right, well, time to move on then to the next segment, which is
What you doing?
and of course the segments where we talk about what we've been doing, reading, watching, all that kind of thing in the last week. And I'll just straight up say I've not watched a single item of television or movie or anything this week. I've been so hectically busy with my final project. I've been in very late most nights, so when I get home, like the most I'll watch is maybe catch up on some YouTube videos, right?
Yeah.
I really haven't. I just haven't watched anything, and I haven't even put any thought into what I want to watch. I just,
Yeah.
you know what I want to watch. You know what I'm looking forward to this week is watching everyone's final
what's that?
projects. Because
Oh,
this week,
same.
it's Southseas at school, right? We're screening all the final projects. Oh, that's gonna be fun. I'm gonna enjoy that a lot. I'm really
Yeah,
excited.
me too.
Really excited.
I'm excited as well to see what everyone's done. That should be really cool.
Other than that, though, that's honestly all I have to say.
So I guess I'll pick up the slack. This week I've been a little bit interesting. I've sort of similar vein to you. I haven't watched any movies or TV shows. I've been listening to a lot of music though. And then I've also been watching like YouTube videos and stuff like that. So the other day I watched most recent episode of poker tournament. So I watched footage from that because I really like poker. in case that wasn't clear enough. Yeah. Oh, so I want to talk about this show that I found on YouTube. Granted, it's from. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts of like the Fine Brothers are. But they have a
Oh, yeah.
show called Sharing Buds. Literally, all the show is so this host of it brings on guests from like the React series and staff members as well. She'll bring a song in to show. The guests will bring one in, and then there'll be also an audience pick. So it's just like a music sort of sharing show, which I really enjoyed watching because it was like hearing music that a lot of the time I don't listen to. So yeah, I really like that show because it's really cool, like because they talk about their song or their pick and like why they like it, and it's really interesting to sort of see people's opinions. Up next is a song I've been listening to lately. It's an old song actually. It's from like I want to say the 90s. Uh, it's called No Vaseline by Ice Cube. Yeah, so it was a diss track when Ice Cube left the group NWA. For those who don't know, Ice Cube used to be a rapper, guys. He was a rapper before he was an actor. Before he was like played like the angry black dude in like every film he's ever been in. But nah, it's such a dope diss track. It's one of the best diss tracks ever, I reckon. Another song I've been listening to is "Thank You Next" by Ariana Grande. It's so good. It's such a good song. Basic. It's a basic pick, but it's just a bop, is what it is. It's just a bop. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't say I expected that from you.
yeah. I don't, I legitimately really like it. It's just a really good jam. It's an interesting take sort of on it because, I mean, most of the time, like it's a breakup song, right? But most of the time with like breakup songs, it's about like how terrible the person was and stuff, right? But like
Mm.
Ariana Grande just goes in a complete different direction with it. You know what I mean? She's just like, oh, like I'm grateful for all these people who are in my life because they've shaped me. Yeah. And then so yeah, sort of similar vein to you, I've been doing a lot like I haven't really had much time to like watch much because I've either been doing schoolwork or I've been the other thing I've been doing though that I'm really excited about is I've started writing again.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I've been working on some stuff more in the vein of like music and stuff. So I've been working on stuff like that, which I'm really proud of. So I look forward to continue writing in all the little areas that I like to dip my toes into. So that's all the stuff that I've watched slash listened to this week. What I want to watch, I do want to see the new Fantastic Beasts movie, um, because
Oh,
I'm a
yeah.
Harry Potter,
I totally forgot about
because I'm a
that.
yeah yeah because I'm a Harry Potter fan.
I've been so busy I haven't been able to go see it, but
Same
I definitely want
same.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's on my list of something, another film that I've added to my list of things I want to watch. Yeah, that's me done. So, if anyone has seen Fantastic Beasts, whether you be listening to this live or later on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to comment below, and we will read it later on. In fact, in this segment, that we call Crunchy Comments. So how Crunchy Comments works is what happens is we grab your comments, whether they be on Twitch or Facebook or Twitter or any other of our social medias, and we read them out loud for you guys. I, however, believe that we don't have any comments again for another week. We have no
Wah, wah,
comments.
wah. No one
Yeah,
in the Twitch either this week. It's been quiet. It's been quiet. If you are going to comment, please leave no spoilers, please, because we still haven't seen it.
basically with this segment, right? Like it doesn't work if we don't have people commenting. And I don't know about you, Ben, but it feels good when people comment because we sort of know that we're not just talking into a void. So please comment. whether that be on, like I said, whether that be on Twitch or Facebook, Twitch or Facebook or Twitter. Yeah, we also have a Patreon, so feel free to support us on Patreon. Yeah, so I think that's it for us for another week. I've been Matt.
And I've been very tired. See you later.
Yeah, see you guys. Goodbye.